What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. And that's right, it's week 3. We're heading into the trade targets. I know you guys love this video. It's my absolute favorite to make. Trading, it is one of the easiest ways to set yourself apart from your opponents and completely upgrade your team. We always have players that we have our eye on, and with the right offer, no player is out of reach. So you have to love that fact. As per usual, we're going to stick with the same format, talk about 4 running backs and 4 receivers. 2 at each position are going to be buy lows, 2 at each position are going to be sell highs. Not really going to be talking about quarterbacks or tight ends. There may be one specific situation where that does fit in, but for the most part, they're overpriced for the value that you get in return for them, and if you're trading them away, odds are it's hard to get a deal that really matches the true value as well. So we're going to stick to running backs and wide receivers, since those are the hottest commodities that are selling as the main targets. Before I do get into the video though, make sure you're following both Nick and I on Twitter. If you guys want some one-on-one time, you guys have some questions, the best way to get in contact with us is through Twitter. Tweet at us. We answer virtually every question on there. We may not respond right away because we're both really busy, but I'm telling you, virtually every question gets answered on there. So make sure you're following both of us. Believe me, you will not regret it. Now, let's move over to the trade targets, but I did want to take a moment to discuss Le'Veon Bell and James Conner. We've been getting a lot of questions about these two players. Le'Veon Bell owners who may have started 0-2 who are hitting the panic button, or James Conner owners who want to cash in on this sell high candidate. Well, for me, I personally am taking the stance that it's a hold on both players. If you have Bell, yes, it's a risk. He's going to be out up until week 10, or who knows, maybe even the whole season. But if you have him, you likely spent a top 5 pick on him, and the people who are trying to trade for him and get him off of you are more than likely offering players that don't even match what he is worth. So if you're a Bell owner and can make it to the playoffs, even if you hit 6th place and just squeak into the playoffs, that's okay, because when he comes back, he's immediately a top 5 option like we're seeing with James Conner. To bounce over to James Conner, yes, you want to sell high, but don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You got him for virtually free, and he's producing at a level you're completely happy with. As long as Bell is out, lock him in your roster, but don't try to trade him away, because again, you're not going to get full value for him. And I'll be damned if I'm selling these guys at half price and it turns out that either Bell comes back early and I just sold Bell 2 weeks before, or I sell out on James Conner and Bell's out until week 10 and I missed out on all of that value for a mediocre player. I'll tell you what, some of the best deals that I've ever done in fantasy when it comes to trades are the ones that never manifested. So what I mean by that is some of the best deals that I've had that are either offers that I sent out or offers that I received ended up being the best in the long run because I didn't take them, meaning the player that I actually had and didn't end up trading was the more valuable asset long term. And that's why for me, if I'm a James Conner owner or a Le'Veon Bell owner, I'm going to hold on to him unless a ridiculous deal comes my way and you just can't refuse it. And on the flip side, I am not trading for either of these players either. It's a headache that I don't want to get myself into, and if I can avoid it at all costs, I'm going to. But let's get into the sell high candidates first. And to start this list, we have Chris Hogan of the New England Patriots. I don't think this is much of a surprise to you guys. It's pretty obvious. Everyone should be getting rid of Chris Hogan this week. Josh Gordon is now a Patriot, and in the 2 weeks, Julian Edelman is going to be back. So Hogan's still going to have his games throughout the season, and I'd still say in the next 2 weeks where he has some decent matchups and Josh Gordon's still dealing with his hamstring injury and getting accustomed to the offense and Edelman's still being out, he's probably going to be a very valuable asset. But the sooner you get rid of Hogan, the better, because as soon as he posts a dud and you see either Edelman performing or Josh Gordon performing, Chris Hogan's value is going to be absolutely zero. And you always want to get in and get the player off your team while they still have value. Isn't that the Patriots way anyway? As for me, I've been sending out offers left and right that include all my Chris Hogan shares. I'm sending them out for players like Demaryius Thomas, Devin Funchess, and as much as it pains me to say it, and I haven't sent this offer yet, I would love to have Quincy Enunwa for Chris Hogan. I still feel like I could get a little bit more than Quincy Enunwa just because people got him off of waivers, and when it comes to waivers, you normally get a little bit of a discount when you trade for that player. But I'm telling you, if you ask me the long-term value of Chris Hogan and Quincy Enunwa, I would put money on it that Quincy Enunwa finishes higher and more more consistent in the fantasy rankings end of season. I mean, think about it. They have Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, Josh Gordon, the 3 pass catching backs in Rex Burkhead, James White, and Sony Michel. That's already 6 players. Where exactly is Hogan going to fit in while all these players are healthy? It's impossible to predict. And if you ask me, the odd man out is more than likely Chris Hogan. So he's coming off a 2-touchdown game. Sell him while you can, but don't expect to get full value for him. Now, moving on, we have DeSean Jackson of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the pace that he is on, or this team is on in general, is crazy. But as for DeSean Jackson, in 2 games, he has 9 receptions on 9 targets, so a perfect 100% catch rate for 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just to show you how crazy that is, if we stretch this 2-game streak through a 16-game pace, that would bring him to 2,200 receiving yards and 24 touchdowns on just 72 targets. Something has to give, and any day now, this insane Fitzpatrick streak could end, and if it does, DeSean Jackson's value will likely tank the most. I think Chris Godwin's value will still remain relatively similar, but if the magic ends over in Tampa, DeSean Jackson's value will go right out the window with it. Now, I'm not saying he can't do it again, and if there was a matchup he could do it again, it's probably week 3 in Pittsburgh. Remember, they just allowed 6 passing touchdowns to Patrick Mahomes, and besides Mahomes, Ryan Fitzpatrick is right up there with just looking like an absolute animal out there. But as it stands today, you're not going to be able to get an every week starter for him, so don't even offer it. But what you can do is put him as the lesser piece of a package deal, somewhere where Jackson isn't the main guy you're trying to trade, because if you do send out a trade with Jackson as the main guy, believe me, people are going to look at it and people are going to decline it immediately, no matter if the deal is good or not. But if the main trade target is another player, a higher valued player, and you throw in somebody else and maybe Jackson as the 3rd piece in there, I guarantee you he can tip the scales right now. He's too hot. He's had too much production, and in the back of everybody's head, they're wondering if this isn't an outlier and if this can actually be the real deal. Take advantage of that. Play smart. Sell DeSean Jackson. Now on to the sell high running backs. To lead this list, we have Marshawn Lynch of the Oakland Raiders. And after 2 weeks, Lynch is currently sitting safely as an RB2 in all formats. And this is large in part to his 2 rushing touchdowns. The good thing about trading Lynch, he's been involved in every aspect of the game. He's averaging 17 touches per game, and we all love volume, especially for our running backs. And he's used in the red zone. In fact, in that primetime game against the Rams that everybody was watching, he went classic beast mode and just ripped that ball right into the end zone, and everybody watched it, and everyone is like, beast mode, he's still got it. So there's volume, there's red zone usage, and not only that, he has had 2 receptions in each of the first 2 games, which isn't much, but it is somewhat of a floor in PPR leagues. So all around, he has what you want. So why would we be saying to sell him? Well, there's still some major issues that anyone diving into it can see, and that is that the offense, it's really not that good, and all of Lynch's efficiency numbers that we were seeing last year were not necessarily getting the same type of production. In fact, his efficiency on the ground has been quite terrible. In his 4 receptions, they only went for 11 yards. So think of it this way, had he not been able to reach pay dirt in each of the past 2 games, he would be averaging just 7.9 PPR points per game, and you, the people, would be asking, should I drop Lynch? But the good news, he has reached the end zone, so he still has value, and he's done it pretty consistently game over game. The streak, though, it's bound to end. Nobody expects Marshawn Lynch to score 16 times this season, especially consecutively, so disappointment is right around the corner. So this is another example of a player we would recommend to package in with a higher price tag player. But I'm telling you, there is a lot of teams that need running backs. Target those teams that lost Mixon. Target those Bell owners who are needy. Target that guy that drafted Jerick McKinnon. With Leonard Fournette out and Dalvin Cook out, there's too many potential trade partners not to send an offer out with Lynch. I just traded him. The trade was Cam Newton, Marshawn Lynch, and Corey Davis is who I was trading away, and in return, I got Tom Brady, Devonta Freeman, and Michael Crabtree. This actually wasn't this weekend. This was basically right after we got the Josh Gordon rumors, and I thought maybe he has some upside. This is a 6-point passing touchdown league. Cam Newton's value tanks a little bit in those types of leagues because he's not going to pass for a ton of touchdowns. But regardless, if you guys have Lynch, that's an example of something you can work out where he is a piece of the trade but not the main piece of the pie. Moving on to the last sell high running back, we have Kenyan Drake of Miami Dolphins. Now, we weren't high on Drake to start this season, but so far he hasn't necessarily busted. Yes, this offense is still majorly concerning and his touch totals aren't exactly where they need to be trusted as an every week RB2, but this week he reached the end zone and he's finished as a top 15 fantasy back, which means it's the perfect time to unload him. In fact, I've been hearing a ton of people saying to buy low on Kenyan Drake. I obviously don't feel the same. I think you should unload on him. Think about it this way. The Dolphins themselves are coming off of 2 games in which they actually had a positive game script. And for those of you thinking, yeah, maybe they can continue this type of trend. Maybe the Miami Dolphins are underrated. Well, they played Sam Darnold and Blaine Gabbert. So not quite the top level competition and waiting on the payout. Look into trading for Alshon. I strongly believe that late in the season, he's going to be a locked and loaded wide receiver too. The next receiver on this list is Demaryius Thomas of the Denver Broncos, and this buy low isn't going to win anybody leagues. In fact, Thomas has looked downright awful in his last game, struggling with drops and playing inconsistently, but regardless, that shouldn't scare you away from at least sending out some offers for him. I've been doing it, seeing what sticks. I haven't been able to land him yet, but I'm pretty sure I will be able to get him before the end of the week. Everyone and their mother knows that the hot player in Denver is Emmanuel Sanders, and the forgotten man, the one who nobody thinks has any value, is Demaryius Thomas, and those same owners that have Demaryius Thomas are extremely frustrated so far this season. But what they don't talk about is that he has received 6 more targets than Emmanuel Sanders. Yes, Sanders has looked increasingly better than Demaryius Thomas, but you can't ignore the fact that he has double-digit targets in back-to-back weeks. Those target numbers, they hold immense value. Now, don't get it twisted. If I had a choice between Emmanuel Sanders or Demaryius Thomas for the rest of the season, I'm still taking Emmanuel Sanders. But who do you think you're going to be able to buy low on in a trade? Definitely not Sanders. More than likely, the guy who's coming off of a 5-reception performance for a measly 18 yards. And that's right, that's DT. So believe me, you're not going to have to pay much at all. Even though it's not a league-winning type play, it's a low-cost player who can be an immediate producer that absolutely nobody wants. And he has all the signs that point to a perfect buy low. Moving on to the running backs, to lead this list, we have Lamar Miller of the Houston Texans. And anyone who owns Lamar Miller has been completely underwhelmed in the first 2 weeks. He hasn't really produced up to his expectations, or at least his draft day price tag. Sure, he has that flex value, but he's really been lacking that RB2 type of performances that he was drafted to be. But I'll be the first to tell you, don't let that scare you away from trading for Lamar Miller. Unlike in previous seasons, he has been looking actually good. He's averaging 4.9 yards per carry on the ground, and he's still been involved in the receiving game. His yards per reception averages are down, but he has a large sample size of his receiving ability in the backfield, which should mean you should not be concerned of this aspect of his game whatsoever. And in fact, the yardage is there. If you were to pace out this 2-game sample over a 16-game season, even though it doesn't feel like it, he's on pace for 1,432 total yards, but the only thing is he hasn't been able to reach the end zone. There's plenty of reasons to believe that that's going to end soon. He has 3 straight home games, and Deshaun Watson, for the first time, started to look like he has some signs of life. So don't get it mistaken, Lamar Miller is an RB2, and if you can get him at that flex value, which is where he's currently performing, you're going to be having a major advantage as we get deeper into the season. Alright guys, the final player on this list is Kareem Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs. What separates Hunt from the other players on this list is that he is going to be much harder to attain, but I really think that you guys who are more creative, you can really pull it off. Originally, I wasn't going to put him on this list, but I did feel forced after receiving a ton of questions from the Kareem Hunt owners asking if they should be concerned. And whenever you have players asking if they should be concerned, that means there's owners out there that are getting concerned. And that's when you send the offers out there, because that's when you're getting the best deal. So the real question is, am I concerned? Obviously not. If I was, I wouldn't add him on this list. And yes, Hunt isn't producing as well on a per touch basis as he had been the year before. He's not making those big plays, but what he is doing is dominating in snaps. There is absolutely no concern with his workload being taken away, and he has had 2 tough road matchups against 2 stout run defenses. Patrick Mahomes is good, and this offense looks amazing through the air and with his arm, but he's not throwing for 80 touchdowns, which is his current pace. And in order to win these games, in order to stay ahead, they've had to put up a ton of points, because not only have they faced defenses that are on the tougher side, they also faced 2 incredible offenses led by Ben Roethlisberger and Phillip Rivers. I'm not saying pay his full RB1 price tag. That just doesn't make sense, because A, he's not performing as an RB1, and B, I don't think you have to pay that anyway. If an owner's asking for that much, then obviously you're not going to be able to make a deal with him. And let's face it, if that owner is smart, they should be asking for an RB1. But what I'm here to tell you guys is there are Kareem Hunt owners out there that are panicking, and when you see that opportunity, you have to jump at it. So send some offers out for Kareem Hunt. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this week's trade targets video. We really hoped you enjoyed. Don't forget, follow both Nick and I on Twitter. Send us your questions on there. We'd be more than happy to help you out. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.